Nebraska had $1.4 billion in exports to China in 2017, according to the U.S.-China Business Council. That number was cut in half last year as China imposed steep tariffs on beef, pork, and soybeans. With both countries announcing plans for new tariffs yesterday, there's no sign that a trade deal is imminent. And for more on what that means for Nebraska, I'm joined by the state's governor, Pete Ricketts. He's a Republican. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate it.
A year into this trade war, what are the impacts you're seeing in Nebraska?
The folks here in Nebraska want to see that we have a relationship with China and we start getting back to more normal trade relations so we can, sell more products like soybeans. However, people also understand that we've got to have a fair trade deal, and that if China is stealing our intellectual property, as the media has oftentimes reported on this, that doesn't fall into that category of a fair trade deal. It's got to be something where both parties benefit.
So do you support what the president is doing?
Oh, I do. Yeah, absolutely. For just that reason, is that we've got to have a fair trade deal with China. And I think the president has rightly identified that China thinks about these things in decades. Obviously, we'd like to see this thing get wrapped up as quickly as possible, but I do think these important issues around intellectual property have to be addressed.
Are you essentially telling farmers in your state, look, there's going to be a fair amount of pain first, but it's going to be worth it in the long run?
Well, actually, they're the ones, by and large, telling me that. So they are the ones who are telling me that, hey, we support what the president's doing. We don't necessarily, appreciate the pain we're going through right now. They'd like to see this get open, but they also understand that this is an important relationship that is fair and balanced on both sides. So that's what I hear when farmers tell me about it.
I'm surprised to hear that because the State Farm Bureau said flooding this year caused hundreds of millions of dollars in agricultural losses. And now you have this tariff issue on top of that. I mean, there are farmers that are really struggling right now.
Oh, absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why we would like to see this relationship get to be more normalized.
So in the short term, the president has said he'll use revenue from U.S. tariffs on China to provide $15 billion in aid to American farmers who are feeling the impact. Just last year, you had folks like Senator Sass saying that the trade war was cutting the legs out from under farmers and called, the aid plan gold crutches. How much longer can farmers get this support from the federal government?
Well, I think everybody recognizes that an aid program like that is a temporary solution. That's not a permanent solution. It's really meant to be able to help tide farmers over as the president works on these trade deals. So I think that those things are helpful, but I think everybody recognizes that they're short-term in nature.
Nebraska Governor Pete Ricketts, thank you for speaking with All Things Considered.
I'm on the line now with Mike Parson. He's the Republican governor of Missouri. Good morning, Governor.
Good morning. How are you this morning?
Very well, thanks. Agriculture is a big industry in Missouri. Your state sent more than $280 million worth of meat and crops to China last year, exports. That's according to the U.S.-China Business Council. What do you think about this new round of tariffs?
Well, number one, agriculture is our number one industry in our state. And, we're watching the trade agreements every day here in Missouri because how it affects our farmers across the state. But we knew going into this thing that this was probably going to be a long haul. It's going to be a procedure and, for the president to do what he's doing, to stand up to China and try to come out with better trade agreements. I think he's on the right track to do that. And Missouri farmers are standing behind that.
Is there a point at which you can imagine telling the White House, listen, we just can't take this anymore?
Well, you know what? Honestly, I think we have to make sure that we give the president the latitude to make these agreements. So, they're going to be long-term. These are major issues that just simply can't be done in a few months or even a year or two. And but we're going to stand behind that. And as long as, you can pay the bills, as long as you make ends meet, that's what you got to look at first. And we got to take care of our farmers, and some farmers could be in that position. It's been a tough year here with the floods we've had. And believe me, we're concerned with the tariffs, the negotiations with China. But at the end of the day, China just can't keep running over the United States of America like a bulldozer in all these Midwestern states. If you can get this thing turned around, which I think the president will, it's going to be an advantage for us long term. And sometimes you have to look at agriculture that way, and you have to look at the markets, whether it's agriculture, whether it's the auto trade industry, or whether it's the chemical side of it. But it has a huge impact on sure, Missouri.
We've heard from farmers on the show that that point of view, the long view, is acceptable. It's understandable if you are established. If you're an established farmer, you've got some equity. But for small farmers, for people who don't have money in the bank, this is really tough.
It is tough. But you know what? When you're first starting out in agriculture, no matter what arena you're in, you also have those same struggles, everyday struggles. If you're a new farmer coming in, it's tough. And, I think that the thing that you really have to focus on is getting the trade agreements done. And I think the president, what he's doing is standing up for those people, for our states. That's what you got to do. And I think the the short-term aid helps, but that's not the future of farming. The one thing that I just really think is important, that we've got to understand this is a tough negotiation. You got a president of the United States. There's probably nobody better to do these negotiations than him. And at the end of the day, I think he's going to win. I think China will give in to the needs of the people of this country, and I think the president is going to take care of the farmers across the country.
Staying positive, Governor Mike Parson of Missouri. Thanks for your time, Governor.